Good evening, dear friends, and welcome to day 177 of a poem a day for 2026. It's Friday, and I am done with work until the 7th of July. It's currently the 26th of June. Not to rub it in anyone's face, but yeah, that's about all the energy I have for a party. I'm so tired. I've also come to the conclusion there is something about recording which makes me want to yawn because I've been sat doing some admin bits for some time before coming to my recording program, and it wasn't until I did my sound check, because I always do a sound check before I go to record the poem, because I have had an incident some time ago where I just went straight into record and there was no audio. So I always do a sound check now. And I yawned through the sound check today, and I was like, this happens every time. No idea. Don't know what it is. I'm specifically right now going to blame the heat, because I'm blaming that for everything. I think it's going to be hot again tomorrow, and then I believe Sunday it's dropping down to 22 degrees, which I cannot wait for. So let's see what the Big Red Book has for us today. Okay, potentially an interesting one. Something potentially close to my heart. 26th of June, The Naming of Cats by T.S. Eliot. Very happy that we get to read some more Eliot today. And the blurb reads as follows. It can seem surprising that Eliot, a writer of long, philosophic poems, also wrote Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, the book that inspired the musical Cats. I did not know that. Eliot seems to be, in part, making fun of his usual poetic style, not least because the names from classical philosophy and mythology are deemed sensible and everyday. So, this is The Naming of Cats by T.S. Eliot. The naming of cats is a difficult matter. It isn't just one of your holiday games. You may think at first I'm as mad as a hatter when I tell you a cat must have 3 different names. First of all, there's the name that the family uses daily, such as Peter, Augustus, Alonzo, or James, such as Victor or Jonathan, George or Bill Bailey. All of them sensible, everyday names. There are fancier names if you think they sound sweeter, some for gentlemen, some for dames, such as Plato, Admetus, Elector, Demeter. But all of them sensible, everyday names. But I tell you, a cat needs a name that's particular, a name that's peculiar and more dignified. Else, how can he keep up his tail perpendicular, or spread out his whiskers, or cherish his pride? Of names of this kind, I can give you a quorum, such as Monkstrap, Quaxo, or Corosipat, such as Bomballerina or Gelliolorum, names that never belong to more than one cat. But above and beyond, there's still one name left over, and that is the name you will never guess, the name that no human research can discover. But the cat himself knows and will never confess. When you notice a cat in profound meditation, the reason I tell you is always the same. His mind is engaged in a rapt contemplation of the thought of his name. his ineffable, effer-nameable, deep, and inscrutable singular name. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. And it opens up a very fond memory for me. Not so much memory as a story that my mum shared with me of her childhood cat, Tiggy. Tiggy was it may have been inspired by Eliot's poem there, actually. Tiggy was his common name. But my mum, there was a stall in their house, the family home, and this is probably when she was between the ages of like 7 and 10. And she would hold court. And I mean like judicial court. If perhaps a piece of cheese had gone missing from the kitchen, she would bring Tiggy up on charges. And she would sit him on this stool, and as the prosecution, she would say something along the lines of, "And I put it to you, Tigathicus Tomithicus Stupodicus," which was his Latin name, that on said day of said month, at said time, you did steal into the kitchen and make your way up onto the counter and consume said piece of cheese which mother had left out. And how do you plead? And Tiggy would always say, "Meh." And she would say, "Bailiff, take him down." And Tiggy would jump off the stool and walk out of the room. He was very complicit in the antics. Yeah. Tigathicus Stupodicus. Tigathicus. I said it just a moment ago and I've already forgotten it. Tigathicus Stupodicus Pontificus, I believe. I said it with such certainty just before, and it's just gone. Brains are very silly things. And on a vaguely similar note, Tiggy used to accompany my mother when she would sing various different things, but the only thing she ever told me about was if she would sing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." And it would be "Somewhere over the rain, bluebirds." He'd always pitch in with the last word of the sentence. And I believe Tiggy lived to be about 17. He lived a good life, did Tiggy. Yeah. Castiel and Meg don't have Latin names, but they do have many silly names. Meg, as a name, lends itself quite easily to silly naming. She's my megalump. She's my megalomaniac. She's my Megasaurus Rex. My of course, I've put myself on the spot and I can't remember any of them. She's Megatron, all that kind of stuff. But Cass or Castiel is a bit more difficult to kind of get the jokes in. And when I lived with a wonderful lady from my first derby team and her husband, the husband, fantastic guy called Jay. he would he made it kind of his life's mission to give Cass more names. And my favourite one, I got home from work one day, and he was in the kitchen cooking. Um, and I stopped in to kind of have a chat with him, and Cass walked into the kitchen, and he was like, "Hey, it's Rick," and I was like, "Rick?" And basically, he'd if you're familiar with the TV show Castle, um, he'd basically extrapolated that Richard Castle could then was then it was fine to call the cat Rick, um, which then eventually, after we saw the episode of Rick and Morty, led to us calling Cass Tiny Rick, and Pickle Rick. Yeah, cats are silly, and so are their names, and I wouldn't have any of it any other way. And that's further proof that my housemates were the best, and I apologise to anyone else who ever has housemates. Having time off work really feels like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders, because I feel like I'm not kind of racing against the clock. Like, I don't know what the clock is, but I'm now on me time as opposed to somebody else's time. I also had a medical appointment this morning, in relation to some tests that I was waiting for, and things aren't as bad as I feared, which is nice. So that's some nice news to go into my week off with. But after rambling on for quite some time, I'm not sure how long we're at. Yeah, about 12 minutes. I'm going to close it there because I need to try and make some food in this sweltering heat. We have made it up to 30 degrees in my flat. So yeah, I'm going to try and have some food and just try and keep cool, and try and rehydrate myself, because that's why I sound so crackly, because I am almost certainly dehydrated. Please do the same for yourselves. Stay safe, friends. And I'm hoping for some kind of storm. I know there has apparently been one brewing or one due, and maybe that will mean that hopefully, just maybe, we can all have a very good night.